Well, thank you all so much for listening in to the Kat Meyer Show. This is a new week, a new episode 11. And I'm so excited for our guest this week is Mrs. Elaine Finney. She is currently a realtor, but this is not her first degree. Not her first career, and not her first degree, not her first certification. And so I'm excited for her to talk about her life, to talk about her current career, and of course, for me to ask all my juicy questions. And fun fact, she hired me back when I was a teenager to babysit her cute kids. So we go way back. I'm so excited to have her. As you all know, the Kat Meyer Show is a legacy of a radio show called The Voice of the People. It was hosted by my late father, Dr. Kenneth Meyer Sr., and his slogan was, "I love you enough to tell you the truth, and I respect you enough to give you the facts." Here on my show, our theme is to entertain you, to educate you, and most importantly, to empower you. And we do that through our dynamic guests. And that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. Mrs. Elaine Finney is a Columbia-based realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty, Columbia Northeast office, serving home buyers and sellers across Columbia, Lexington, Blythewood, Forest Acres, Orangeburg, Elgin, and Myrtle Beach. Since becoming a licensed real estate agent in South Carolina, she has consistently closed transactions annually and maintains a 5-star client rating on Google. Her Zillow profile displays updated transaction history, demonstrating transparency and performance in residential sales. Elaine specializes in luxury homes, land sales, new construction, and helping first-time and relocating buyers find the right property across both the Midlands and Grand Strand markets. She is certified as an ABR, SRS, RENE, and PSA, designations that strengthen her pricing strategy, negotiation skill, and ability to serve both sides of the transaction. With a background in engineering and project management, Elaine brings analytical precision and client-first service to every deal. Whether you're searching for a new construction, move-in ready home, a coastal home in Myrtle Beach, or land to build your next chapter, Elaine Finney is a real estate agent who combines market expertise, proven results, and a people-first approach. You can find you at www.elainefinney.com. Wow. So your domain is your first and last name.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then listeners can find you on Facebook at Elaine Finney Realtor, Coldwell Banker Realty. I'm used to you as the engineer and the teacher. So why don't you start us with, how did you transition to real estate?
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, Catherine, for having me on your show. I've known you since you were a teenager.
No.
Let's go way back when you babysat my kids.
That's right. And they're all grown and in school. This is like, wow, this is full circle.
Yes. It is full circle. And I think that's how real estate has been for me for full circle.
Okay.
Because when the twins were 2 years old, I have 3 children.
Yeah.
And oldest one is a girl and a boy and girl twins. When the twins were 2 years old and I was staying home with them, I decided to get my real estate license. And I said, well, I think real estate will be a way for me to have flexibility to be able to take care of my children, take care of my home, and to have an income coming in with a career that was flexible. Actually, I chose engineering in high school. My father was a brick mason. I did not know any engineers. And so I knew I was very good at math. And so when I thought about it, I said I did not want to teach math. And so when I was looking at careers that had strong math backgrounds, engineering came to the forefront. And that's why I majored in engineering. And I started off majoring in civil engineering because my father was a brick mason. And I said, I could do this. I could do that. I see what he's doing outside. And after I took that surveying class, my first semester, my sophomore year, I said, this is not for me. Right. I did not enjoy working outside. Even though growing up, I had to work outside manual labor in Edgefield, South Carolina.
Wow.
I said, I've been there, done that. I don't want to do that anymore. So I changed my major my sophomore year to industrial engineering. And my
Okay.
roommate at the time was in industrial engineering. And she told me, she said, I think you would like this. And I did. Process management, project management, time studies, efficiency studies, relating more with people and understanding how and what makes people work and how to make them more efficient in their day-to-day jobs. And so
Awesome.
that's the career I chose. I retired in 2022, right after COVID. And so I stayed home for a year and I was like, no, this is not working for me. I need to stay busy. And I
Okay.
said, well, let me look at my toolkit of skills to see what I had available to me.
Right.
And at that time, I chose not to start something new. I looked at what I already had, and real estate was one thing I had. And I said, instead of teaching young kids about engineering, I think I could do a great job of helping adults learn about building wealth through real estate.
But I want to start you off with the first question that I like to ask everybody. And that is, can you share with the listeners, um, when did you first fall in love with yourself?
Catherine, that I thought about that question a lot. And
Okay.
and I would say it was not in elementary school, it was not in
Okay.
middle school, it was not in high school, it was not in
Okay.
college. I fell in
Okay.
love with myself after college. And I think
Okay.
it took the journey of going through a, living in a small town, growing up in a small town, going to a major university, and finding what made me comfortable for me to fall in love with myself and to experience life outside of being in a small town. And so after college, when I got my first job, was working on my own, earning my own money, having to um, keep my apartment and, live the big girl life, that's when I learned to love myself and to appreciate the things that my parents had to go through in order to make life better for me.
For the listening audience, I was just wondering, like, what advice would you give to any listeners that are also making that transition to being full-time parents, like cooking dinner every night, going to soccer practice and volleyball practice, to not doing any of that? Like, how does that feel? How are you making the transition? Does this mean that you're a workaholic now? Like, just what does it mean for you?
Well, I think it had to be a balance because when the
Okay.
children all went off to school, there was a lot of silence in the house. And so my husband and I had to
Ah.
learn how to get reacquainted with just, I guess, dating each other again. You
Yes.
know, and my husband said, he said, Elaine got so used to having twins around the house. We have twin dogs now, Caesar and Cleopatra, which are a boy girl Shih Tzu.
Oh.
So, they provide companionship. And
Yes.
also, as you get older, and I'm, in my early 60s now, we
Okay.
have the parents that are older. So my mom lives here in
Right.
Columbia. And so I'm able to take time to take her to her doctors, listen to the doctors, follow up with that, and help when she needs my help with things. And I also have two
Awesome.
sisters that I'm able to take time with and do things with. So it's not just me sitting at home, not doing anything. Um, Although I think the first few months after retirement, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I had this list of things I wanted to get accomplished. I wanted to learn how to knit. I wanted to do a quilt. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. Well, those things I never did do. I bought the quilt piece. I brought the thread. I have a sewing machine. I have, you know, I have the yarn and I have the needles to knit,
Yep.
but I have not
Yep.
started those projects yet. So I think that will come in the next phase of my life. But I
Nice.
chose to help people achieve their goals with real estate, and that's
Right.
working for me right now. And I receive personal joy from doing that. I was
That's
telling
awesome.
someone tonight, someone bought their first home They had been living with their mom, and they said they wanted to buy their first home, and they were in their 40s or 50s. And to see the excitement of that person getting a home for the first time, I love that. And I
Oh,
think
that's
that's what I
amazing.
enjoyed when I was teaching at the high school level and helping kids to understand engineering and not to go into engineering just for the money, because
Mm,
it does pay well. But to get to that point, you have to be able to follow a process. There are steps involved, and helping them to understand that work that goes behind having that engineering to your name. Some people said, oh, that's too much work. I don't want to do that. Or some people
right.
said, well, I thought I wanted to do that, but I really don't want to do that. And having engineering in the high school level helped kids to understand exactly what they did and did not like about the career they thought they wanted to achieve. And so I think that goes hands in hand with real estate, because people think they want one thing, and when by the time they get through it, they may not necessarily want that particular thing because of what's involved, whether that's monetary or their debt to equity ratio or whatever. You come to learn what's important to you based upon what you want to achieve. And I think that's
Perfect.
very important for people to understand.
Definitely. And I appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to shift us just quickly because, you've known me since I was a teenager. So I've known you more than 20 years and you still look the same. I went from being a little kid to grown up and you still look the same. And I've also had the pleasure of, I've been able to see your wedding photos and stuff. And you looked great back then and great now. And I know my listeners, they can't
Well,
stand
please
me.
at the end, okay? Your check
but
is in
my
the mail.
I'm telling the truth. But my listeners can't stand me because my podcast is audio only. So they
Uh-huh.
can't see you, but I'm telling them that you look great. So could you tell us, are there any secrets? Do you have any non-negotiable parts of your self-care routine that, you'd like to share with us?
Well, Catherine, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a simple self-routine type person.
Okay.
I only wear makeup if I'm
Okay.
going to a special occasion. I put on
Okay.
lipstick for this event, but most
Okay.
of the time I don't wear any makeup whatsoever. And my
Wow.
routine is just to wash my face. I use Dove to wash my
Okay.
face. And,
Okay.
and
Okay.
And I say the genes come from my mama, because my mama still does not
Nice.
have a lot of wrinkles in her face. So I get that from my mother.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So it's just in the genes. We can't look like you.
Yes.
We just got to be in your family.
You got to be in my family, girl. You got to be one of the
Right.
ones.
I love it. So I
It's that
also wanted.
Edgefield water, girl.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, I also am curious to know, with all your certifications, with you being in this field 3 years now in real estate, like, what are you currently reading or learning, or are you just kind of practicing what you've already learned?
Right now, I think I'm practicing what I've already learned. I made the
Okay.
decision after I retired from teaching that I was not going to go to get another degree. I have a a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering technology. I have a master's in business. I have, all
Okay.
these 3 to 4, 5 certifications in real estate. And I said, if I haven't learned it by now, I'm not going to learn it. But I do
Okay.
listen to podcasts. I listen to real estate podcasts. I also listen to podcasts about feeling good about yourself. And I think I
Nice.
am in a place where I feel good about myself, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
tend to listen to, whether it's, articles or something on Facebook or social media. I tend not to concentrate on the negative things. If it's going to bring me down, like the political arena right now, I
Whew.
try to stay away from it because I can't change it.
Right.
I can influence it by practicing my vote, right?
Right.
But I can't change it as one individual. And so I try not to argue about things I cannot change, but I use my vote to influence things that I could have an impact on. Okay.
No,
So
I think that's
I've learned
great. And
to
that's,
chill a little.
yes, and that kind of hits on maybe three or four of the things I was gonna ask. But yeah, that's great to know because that's self-care too. You're
Mhm.
protecting your mind.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
and then I also wanted to ask you, I think you've been married longer than I've been alive. And there's so many people that are listening that are in relationships, are married, or never been married or divorced, but, want to find love again. But so it's kind of a two-part question. I wanted to know, like, what advice would you give listeners for a long-term relationship and marriage? And also, what advice would you give your younger self about relationships?
Okay. Well, I will say this. A relationship is hard. A marriage is harder.
Mm,
And communication in a committed relationship is even harder.
mm,
And I tell people, you have to learn how to communicate with each other. And the communication changes over the years because you change. I
right.
changed from when I first was a teenager to when I was in college to when I first got my career job to having children to losing a child in stillbirth to,
Mm,
raising my children, going through sports, going through marital issues, right? It's not all going to be peaches and cream. And what you have to decide on is whether you're going to go through the rough times together or whether you can't. And so that's only a
mm,
personal question you can ask. And I also tell people
right.
don't talk about your relationship with other people because they're not part of it.
Yeah,
They don't know everything that's
right.
going on. Okay. You have to be able to talk to your partner. And sometimes it takes, excuse me, going through counseling. There's nothing wrong
Right.
with going through counseling, whether that's emotional support. I know I had to go through counseling when I lost our first child at stillbirth. It was
Yeah.
33 weeks and it was stillborn, right? And I still had to
Mm,
birth her the natural way. So I went through
wow.
depression with that piece of it. Um, it's just like anything that's important to you. If it's important enough to you, you will do what's necessary to try to get you through it. And for me, it was counseling
Yeah.
with children. It was counseling in marriage, and it's a personal decision for you. But for me, that helped. That
Yeah.
helped.
That's great. I mean, and I love to hear that from your generation because I feel like my generation, we make it seem like counseling belongs to us. But it's great to
Mm-hmm.
hear that, that was a resource that you also were able to tap into.
Yes, yes, because it was important
Okay.
to me. And I think you have to realize, is it important enough to you to do what's necessary to get to the other side? Is it worth it?
Right.
And that's what I tell my children. Um, you have to decide what's important for you, but don't give up so easily because you think something else is going to be better, but it could be worse.
Mm. Like the
So
grass is
do
not
you
greener on the other side.
Exactly, exactly. So do you start over or do you try to compromise to get to a place where you're happy? And
I love
marriage and
that.
relationships are about compromise. Deciding on
Definitely.
what you're willing to compromise on to get to the next level versus what you're not. And you just have to weigh the pros and cons of what that compromise is. I would never compromise my personal ethics. But there's some things that I could say, that's not important. Or I could say, you know, that's not going to change. Is it important enough to end things over? Is it important enough to walk away from that relationship? Only you can answer that question.
Now, I wanted to ask you about goal setting. And again, like, I'm not trying to hype you up to the listeners. I'm just telling y'all the truth. Like, if you go to your website, if you go to your Facebook page, if we've seen the success you've had as a realtor, like, I I'm I feel like I can confidently say that nothing was happenstance. Like, you being successful is not just by chance. But what I wanted to ask on behalf of the listeners is, could you give us like a little sneak peek into how you've made the life that you have? Like, how do you set career goals? You have a beautiful home, a beautiful family, take care of yourself. Like, are you someone that for the new year, you're setting New Year's resolutions? Do you have a journal that you keep track? Like, how have you created a wonderful life and a wonderful career?
Well, I think it started when I was younger. My mother taught her children, I want better for you than I had. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind that I wanted to do better. There were certain things I wanted. I wanted a career, I wanted a family, I wanted a marriage. Um, and I had to look at how was I going to get there. When I went
Right.
off to college, I tell you, uh, I lived in my Foot Locker that whole summer before starting college because I was ready to go. And I knew I was not coming back. I had packed my stuff. Graduation was like May 29th or something. My Foot Locker was packed with my clothes, and I lived out of my Foot Locker until I went off to Clemson University in August. And I
Wow.
knew that I had to be successful to be successful, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was no turning back. I was not going back to Edgefield, even though I ended up there 3 months after college, but I was not going
Okay.
back there to stay. I did not
Right.
work that hard to go back to being the same way I was before I went off to college. And
Right.
after college, it was a natural step. I got my career, and I remember a project leader told me I was working for him, and I decided I wanted to go back and get my master's degree and work at night. So I worked full time, and I went to Clemson University, had a program at Furman University. So I drove to Furman
Ah,
2 nights a week to get my master's degree. And this guy
wow.
said to me, why would you do that? Why do you want your master's degree? They're not going to pay you any money, more money. And I told him, I said, it's not about the money, but it's a personal goal for me. So
Right.
I have set a goal to get my master's in business. I want to understand not just the engineering side, the manufacturing side. I do a project. I want to know what they're going to do with the research I'm doing. I want to be on the business
Right.
side of it. So it's a personal goal for me. So I got my master's, and then I eventually went to the business side, although that wasn't the reason I went. And I left him on the manufacturing side. So it was
Wow.
just always, what's the next step? What's the next step? And for me, it was achieving something, whether that was children or family or marriage or, teaching. And the career in high school came by happenstance. I was home with my children and was at Blythewood High School, and the principal said, Miss Finney, aren't you an engineer? And I said, yes. And he says, well, we need you. Can you come sub for us because our engineer is leaving? So I started off substituting in that classroom. And so then they asked me to stay as the engineering teacher. So it wasn't like I was
Wow.
seeking out, but because of my skill set, I was sought out to do that job. And once I got in there, I realized, I was like, wow, I could really utilize all of my 20 years of engineering experience to help kids understand what it is to be an engineer and what's involved and the steps in it to see if they really want to do that before they get to college and waste all that money. So it really worked
Right.
out for me to do that. So for real estate, it was just a matter of me personally wanting to understand the real estate market when I had my twins, because I was home with them, and when they're asleep, I wanted to be doing something. And so I started looking at financial planning and real estate and understanding that to achieve wealth for my family. And so I saw that as a way to
Right.
get wealth for my family. And so that's how the real estate thing started 22 years ago, because the twins are 23 now.
Oh my gosh. Woo! That's how I know I'm old. So
Yes.
for those who
The
are
oldest is
listening,
28 and will be 29.
so see, I'm 38. Time flies. Time really flies. Wow.
Yes.
Well, to those who are listening and who may be interested in getting their real estate license, is it true that, you don't get paid unless you sell a house?
You do not get paid unless you sell a house or you list a house for a client and close on that house. So to sell a house means
Okay.
that they've gone through the process and have gone through closing. That's when you get paid from your broker. You don't get the money directly.
Okay.
Okay, that's another
Oh,
misconception. That commission is based upon the price of the house that closes, right? And then if you are
okay.
with a brokerage, a broker gets a percentage of that money, and then you get a percentage of that money. Okay.
Okay,
So
because
the
you're not your own individual entity. You're with a company.
exactly, exactly. And I made that
Okay.
choice that I didn't want to be a broker or a broker in charge or have my own company. That's not something that I wanted to do. But there are a lot of real estate
Mm-hmm.
agents and realtors who have done that. And so they get to keep all of that money for their business. But I chose just to be an individual contractor. So I am an individual contractor with Caldwell Banker Realty, the Columbia Northeast office off of Spears Creek. So I have to pay my own taxes. I pay my own this and that.
Okay.
But Caldwell Banker, as a
Okay.
franchise office, provides some incentives and perks to you, like printing and paper and other items, training, free training. And I get all the free training I want to become a better realtor.
Okay.
But that's the route that I chose. So there are different routes
All
that you can
right.
choose. However, realize that the commission, your net pay, is based if you work for a real estate company, you don't get all that money, right? You get a portion, just
Mm-hmm.
like on
Right.
a regular job. You're getting the big piece, you get a
Okay.
piece of it. Okay?
Right.
Yes.
Well, for those
But for
listening
anyone
in
that's
South
interested in
Carolina,
real estate, say that again.
oh, go ahead.
So for anyone interested in real estate, it is a process that you have to go to a real estate class, and then you have to take tests and pass those tests before you become a real estate agent, right? And to practice real
Okay.
estate, you have to work for someone, whether you go work some brokerage office, whether it's a small boutique
Okay.
brokerage or a large firm. Until you become a broker or a broker in charge, you cannot work for yourself. You have to work for some entity, right? You have to be under some umbrella.
Okay. Okay. And so for those listening in South Carolina or thinking about moving to South Carolina, you're saying that you're in Columbia, Lexington, Blythewood, Forest Acres, Orangeburg, Elgin, and Myrtle Beach. So which area has the best houses? The biggest, prettiest houses?
It's the house that you want, the house that you
Okay.
can
So
afford.
for I don't want to hear
Exactly.
that.
And that's the key. It's the house that you can afford.
Yes.
That is the house
Yes.
for
Well,
you.
when I bought my very first house, when I was a first time home buyer, I think it was like 100 and something thousand. When I went looking for
Mhm.
houses like last year and this year, I didn't see any houses for 100 and something thousand. Is that because they don't exist anymore?
There are some houses that are less than $100,000. It all depends on what you're looking for, right?
A
Those
fixer-upper,
houses
probably.
may need, yes, a fixer-upper or an investment type property or a condo, but the price of houses is still appreciating every year. Even though the interest
Okay.
rates may be higher and some people may not be buying homes at this particular time, year over year, home value is appreciating. Okay. So if you're
Okay.
saying, I'm going to wait to buy a home, okay, what you really need to do is see how much you are pre-approved for, right? Talk to a
Right.
lender, go through that process to understand what you can afford and determine at that point whether you're ready to make that investment or not based upon that information. But just to say, I'm going to wait for the interest rate to come down may not be the right thing for you because homes are still appreciating in value, which means the price of the house is going up, right? And so you might want to know how much you are qualified for so that you can make an informed decision on whether you can purchase a home this year versus wait 2 or 3 years down the road when the houses are going to be costing more
Right.
for the same
And
type house.
exactly. And I want people to reach out to you, and we'll give your contact information again at the end. But something I've always wondered about with pre-approvals, and I was gonna see what your thoughts are. Like, if you get pre-approved for $350,000, does that mean that you really can buy a house for 350, or you need to go below that amount? That's what I've always felt like it's a trick. Could you kind of speak to that?
Well, yes, the trick is you need to do research. The trick
Okay.
is that $350,000 home you may be qualified for based upon your debt to equity ratio may not be what you want to purchase because you still want to
Mm.
go out and eat. You want to go
Right.
furnish the home after you close on that home. You have to pay
Right.
taxes on that. You have to pay insurance
Right.
on that home. Things break in the home. Do you have some
Hmm.
money saved up for those things? Because it's going to happen, right?
Okay.
So just because you can afford to buy a house at X level may not mean that you should buy a house at X level, right?
Right.
Because you need to understand from your lender how much is that monthly payment going to be? How much is that insurance going to be? How much is the interest going to be? And how much is our
Right.
taxes going to be? You hear people talk about PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay.
Okay.
Those are the four variables that go into who you pay, what you pay to the mortgage company, right? And then you have to look at, okay, I got to buy groceries. You may have children. I got to pay this, that, and that for the children to exceed. So when you look at everything in your budget, which you should have a written budget to understand that, that's where you may
Right.
not want to purchase the maximum, but purchase less and then wait a while. And then maybe after 5 or 7 or 10 years, then move up and buy that next home. A lot of people try to get everything into that first home. It's called a first time buyer, a first time home, because what you want to do is buy, gain some equity in that home, and then potentially sell and buy something more, right? Where you can afford a larger home or in a different neighborhood or have some of the characteristics that you may have. But you may not want to do that with your first home. You just want to stop paying rent, which is a waste of
Right.
money. Rent is
Right.
good if that's the only thing that you can afford right now. And I don't discourage anyone
Right.
from renting because I rented for several years until I saved up and could afford to purchase something. But always have a
Right.
plan of what you want next and when you want it.
Oh, I love that. Always have a plan. Well, you just gave us so much, gave me knowledge, gave our listeners knowledge for free. So thank you so much. Only on the Cat Meyer Show do you get this expertise. Now, I got a couple questions left for the listeners. I know time is moving so fast. My next to last question is, I wanted to ask you, Miss Finney, when you experience self-doubt or fear or disappointment, can you share with us some of the things you do, you say, or you practice to empower yourself? I know you have told us about podcasts that you've listened to. You've told us about therapy. Could you just speak to that?
And I think about prayer. My mother and I were talking about this earlier today. She says you have to pray for what you want, and then you got to leave it there. You can't keep going and trying to change it and keep questioning why it's not happening. You just got to leave it there. So prayer. And sometimes, Catherine, you have to change what you're asking for. Just because you ask for it doesn't mean that it's what you need. Okay? And I had to learn that the hard way. Sometimes what we ask for is not necessarily what we need or what we can have at that point in time. And you have to wait, or you have to revise, or you have to change. And sometimes it's about rebalancing what your expectations are, rebalancing what you want, and learning to go after things, but go after them the right way. And realizing that sometimes it's not for you. It may be for the other person, but it's not for you.
Right. Oh, that's powerful. To me, that reminds me of the serenity prayer, right? Like grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. And is it the wisdom to know the difference?
Know the difference. Exactly. Exactly.
Nice.
And that's all a part of the learning process that we all have to go through. And everybody's learning is not the same, and everyone's path is not the same.
Right.
And I think once we learn that and accept that, then we can move forward with what is our plan for living.
Most definitely. Well, I'm going to close us out, and I'm going to let you have the last word. This has been another episode of the Cat Meyer Show. So happy to have you. Good night, good morning, whatever time it is for you. We're going to close out with the words from Miss Finney for this last question. And that is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your self-love journey and how you've been able to live your very best life?
I would say self-learning is a life-learning process. It's never over. You have to keep learning, keep evolving, keep adapting to make yourself better and to make yourself happy. Because sometimes it's not about getting better, it's being happy with where you are. That's it.
Contentment. I love it. Thank you so much for blessing this show, for blessing the microphone, and for being a guest on the Cat Meyer Show.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. I'm so proud of you.
Yay! Thank you. All right.